But nonetheless, we have made it all the way to Abu Dhabi. Double check we are actually live. We are. Good. How are we all doing in the chat? How are we all feeling? Have we got any big predictions for today? Hello, Sarah's in here. Sally as well. Tez T55. How's it going? Ash K in there. Ryan, the Lego. Myths. Sky. Slimy. Satvik. Felix. How are we? So sad. Can't live without something to watch for 3 months. It's going to be like, well, there's a, postseason testing to kind of tie us over for at least one more week. Then we've got, I imagine we'll see quite a bit of pre-season stuff just because we've got the big live event, obviously, for 75 years of Formula One. And then on top of that, all of the teams doing extra bits. So we've kind of got an additional thing to look forward to in the preseason. And then it's back into testing. It'll be starting before you know it. Am I team Max or Verstappen? I'm team Papaya, even though, I've forgotten to get changed. I've forgotten to put on some Formula One merchandise of some kind. It's because I went to Morrison's about half an hour ago. Little bit of a stretch. Don't know why I decided to do it then, but needed to do it at some point. Why vertical? You got both options. You got vertical, you got horizontal. You can join us in either. Depends whether you're on mobile or not. Click the link. Go to the channel. They're both available to you. You can't complain. You've got both choices. Ooh, 7:05 p.m. in India. I always kind of forget that Formula One is the fan base is so broad. We do bring in a lot of people from a lot of places. But as I was saying, the final qualifying of the season, I'll quickly get the stream up so that I can get the live data for us as we run through it. I've got high hopes though. Papaya are looking very, very swift indeed, and I'm hoping for at least, I'd take, both McLarens being in the top 4. I think that would be where I'm aiming for today. One of them on pole, obviously. And then, I don't know, maybe a P3 or a P4 from Piastri. Lando's on pole. Or the other way around. Don't mind if the other way around. Who's going to get pole? I do think the McLarens look the best for it. Just looking at kind of free practice 3. I don't know if the live data is still available. There you go. Yeah, looking at free practice 3. The 2 McLaren cars still topping the timing sheets. Piastri, a good chunk of time ahead of Hamilton. You're looking at a couple attempts between Piastri and Norris, and then another couple attempts between Norris and Hamilton. So a 4/10 deficit to the next quickest team. I'm really hoping that translates to something, because we were also really, really quick in free practice 2 as well. When are we having the next watch party? That is a great question. Friday? Probably. I make it probably a Friday thing. Friday, get home from work, a little bit of a chill, watch something together. Max Verstappen P22, Logan Sargent P9. I think it's unlikely to happen. Mainly as Logan Sargent not racing, and I don't think in Qatar. What's Leclerc doing? Well, Leclerc's got a 10-place grid penalty, so Leclerc can only achieve so much, really. 10-place grid penalty is going to be, well, if you get pole position, you start P11. And if it was P11, we'd be pretty critical of Charles Leclerc's qualifying. So he can't do anything, really. There's not a lot that he can achieve. I think at the end of the day, he'll probably, I don't know, actually. I was trying to think, because sometimes you see when drivers get grid penalties, they try and make it through to Q2, and then they just kind of stop there and reserve the tyres. But Charles Leclerc might go for it, because he could qualify in that top 5. And then you take the 10-place grid penalty, P15. It's not the worst thing in the world, I guess, maybe. But yeah, Ferrari throwing that away, unfortunately. Carlos Sainz, I think, will have a good race, but I just don't think the Ferrari car is quite there this weekend. in comparison to the McLaren. I was a little bit 50-50 going into this weekend. I did think it was up for grabs when it was only a 21-point gap. And if Ferrari came out and they were the quickest car that they have been in a few races over the second half of the season, I feel like they definitely could be in contention for it. Especially, you only need one of the McLarens really to have an absolute horror show. Although Lando Norris had an absolute horror show in Qatar, so you're hoping that he doesn't have back-to-back weekends that are absolutely atrocious. But Lewis will cement his legacy of failure. Too bad it will bring Ferrari down with him. How on earth have you got that? He's won so many races at Mercedes. He's won more races than not at Mercedes, I think. Let me go back to... I think we had a look at it yesterday in the pre-race. He's got more... There's more yellow there than anything else. Like, so much yellow for Lewis Hamilton in terms of his results. He is absolutely smashed his time at Mercedes. So, I have to disagree, unfortunately. Oh, that's weird. Quickly grab that track. There we go. Hamilton will Bottas, Norris, and Piastri to his new team. I feel like Hamilton... I can't remember who said it now. I did see somebody mention if it came down to it and Hamilton did have to play kind of the second role at Ferrari, say Charles Leclerc is in the championship battle and maybe the start of the season for Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari doesn't go perfectly. You know, it takes a little bit of time to bed in. Maybe it isn't perfect straight off the bat. I did see a few people kind of say it would be quite nice to see if Lewis Hamilton did play that second driver role to Leclerc and almost helped Charles Leclerc win his first championship. And would that be akin to, obviously it's not as big as winning his 8th championship, but I do think there's a lot of like positivity that Lewis Hamilton could have from even just getting Charles Leclerc to the point where he wins a championship for Ferrari and being part of that within the team. So I think that's quite an interesting one to delve into. And obviously we'll kind of think about that a little bit more, say 5-6 races into next season, and we'll see where both of the drivers are at. Maybe Ferrari aren't even in the title fight. Maybe it's McLaren and Red Bull. Maybe it's Mercedes and Red Bull. Maybe it's, whoever it may be. Haas and Alpine. We don't really know until we get into next year. But I do think that's quite an interesting factor. But before we talk about that, before we kind of delve into Ferrari, I do think, again, similar to what I said yesterday, we have to just thank Lewis Hamilton or the Mercedes team have to be so grateful for Lewis Hamilton and Lewis Hamilton's ability to just keep on going every single season. He was relentless for a very, very long time. We had 6, 7, 8 seasons, you could even argue, of Lewis Hamilton being easily the fastest driver out on track in the fastest car. Apart from that battle with Rosberg that kind of put him under pressure. And then again, a few years later, the battle with Verstappen. In between that, absolutely just sailed to victories for a good, 4 or 5 years there alongside Valtteri Bottas. So, going to be interesting. Can Max win the finale? I wasn't expecting him to win Qatar, to be honest. Going into the weekend and even after the sprint race, I don't think you could have expected Max Verstappen to win in Qatar. So never say never in Formula One at the minute. It's kind of the thing. And as much as I love having a little skeptical look and thinking about which car I think is most suited to which track, we've seen multiple times this year that completely flipped on its head, or a surprise package coming along. Like even just last week in Qatar, I thought the McLarens would walk it. That was not the case once it came to the Grand Prix. Obviously, they did really, really well in the sprint race. But even in the sprint race, Oscar Piastri was under constant pressure from George Russell. And then when it came to Las Vegas, I was like, oh, this should be a Ferrari track. Ferrari should be really poised to win this. And then the Mercedes car was absolutely electric. They weren't expecting it. We weren't expecting it. Just kind of popped up. So it is very, very, very hard right now to predict who's going to be where. So far this weekend, it's played into McLaren's hands. And so far, the McLaren car does look the quickest. It should realistically be the quickest around this kind of circuit. We know that the McLaren car is kind of maybe the most middling car of those top four. Like Mercedes has real peaks and troughs. Red Bull's had maybe similar peaks and troughs, although a little bit more consistent. Ferrari, I think, is just behind McLaren in terms of consistency. And I mean, that's where the Constructors' Championship comes into it, right? I'm kind of just saying what the Constructors' Championship is telling us. We can look at the championships just quickly before the qualifying does get underway. We've got about 15 minutes or so before we get started. Obviously, Max Verstappen crowned champion. Unfortunate that I don't think we're going to see a real battle between Norris and Leclerc. With that 10-place grid penalty for Charles Leclerc, I think that is done and dusted now. Oscar Piastri then 50 points off Leclerc, so he's basically guaranteed 4th place unless Carlos Sainz comes out and gets a win from nowhere, and Oscar Piastri has a really, really tough weekend. I'm not expecting Carlos Sainz to get another win, although he did manage to get one in Mexico. So, again, never say never when it comes to this Formula 1 season. George Russell behind that in 6th place. I do think George Russell is going to finish ahead of Lewis Hamilton. That battle is crucial, I think, for George Russell's future with the team. He can always kind of point back to this season and be like, the last season that I had with Lewis Hamilton, the time that we were together, I managed to beat him in a similar car. So Sergio Perez then behind that in 8th place by a considerable margin. Still a lot of talk around Sergio Perez. Still, it's difficult to tell. Isaac Hadjar was actually quite sort of open, I guess, in the Formula 2 press conferences a couple of last week in Qatar and then also this weekend in Abu Dhabi. He's kind of been not too cagey about the fact that he could win Formula 2. Obviously, is getting ever closer to the end of the Formula 2 championship. Bortoleto now does have a little bit more of a lead. If you didn't see the Formula 2 sprint race, Hadjar did lose out. Bortoleto is now 5.5 points ahead. So Bortoleto managed to eke out a 5-point gap or 5 more point gap, but still goes down to the wire. So Hadjar could end up being the Formula 2 champion this year. Obviously, Bortoleto guaranteed to be in the Stake Sauber seat next year. So Zhou Guanyu, Valtteri Bottas both making way for Hülkenberg and Bortoleto. Hadjar not confirmed yet. And you look at Sergio Perez, you look at Tsunoda doing quite well this season. I think Lawson has been fairly good value for money since he's come in the 5 races that he's had. So I think when it comes to those two, and also the fact that Hadjar could be a Formula 2 champion, that then puts RB in a little bit of an awkward situation, because if he does win it, he can't go in Formula 2 again. So then they have to give him a bit of a reserve driver role. Maybe he'll do something like what Lawson did for a couple of seasons, Isaac Hadjar. Or they just go for it, right? They get rid of Sergio Perez. They force the Mexican out in one way or another. I think they're trying to kind of push him to retire more so than be fired. So we'll see how that plays out between the two of them. And then does Hadjar go in? Colapinto, the rumors have kind of disappeared for Franco. Does look like he's just going to be the Williams reserve for next year. It's interesting. Still very interesting going into the end of the season in terms of we're not 100% sure as of yet who is going to be driving in 2025. And it's not something that happens super often, especially at a top team. Usually, last season it was, will Logan Sargent keep his seat at Williams? And that was kind of the only one where you're like, yeah, maybe he could end up losing it. Obviously, he ended up keeping it, but that was decided after the season had ended. It's not normally that a top team is completely deciding on their future, and that then also impacts another team quite heavily already. And we're at the final race of the season, and we still don't really know because everybody's very cagey about talking about it. Fernando Alonso yesterday was very, very negative. Talked about it being the worst car that he's driven in a very long time. He was a little bit more positive this morning, was Fernando Alonso. And to be honest, his season has been done since, the summer break? Like, Fernando Alonso's really been driving for not a lot at all over the last part of the season. So then you have Nico Hulkenberg behind. Pierre Gasly, just 1 point between the two of them. That top 10 place, I think, does mean quite a lot. Tsunoda, Stroll, Ocon, Magnussen, Albon. Daniel Ricciardo still 17th. Should hold on to that. Can't see Behrman. Well, Behrman's not racing, but I can't see Colapinto or Joe scoring enough points to overtake Daniel Ricciardo. Lawson then on 4 points. Valtteri Bottas and Logan Sargent, the two drivers yet to score. Although Valtteri Bottas has looked fairly decent, you know. Again, if the free practice 3 timings are still up, not so much in free practice 3, but yesterday in free practice 1, free practice 2, Bottas was looking okay. So maybe, just maybe, he'll be able to sneak in there. Are these updated stats? They are indeed. Didn't he beat him last year too? Wasn't it the year before? I thought Russell won their first season together, 2022. Then for some reason I remember Hamilton beating Russell last year in terms of points. I might be wrong. I thought they were kind of one apiece. And then George Russell was gonna do the thing this year where he then promoted himself. Put Lawson immediately next to Max. Rather him than Hadjar. Oh yeah, I don't think Hadjar would go straight in next to Max, but interesting that Tsunoda still isn't being talked about that seat, right? Promote Tsunoda for a season or 2. Oh, it's nonsense to put Lawson immediate next to Max. Yeah, I'm less inclined. I just don't think Tsunoda will get that chance, though, to be honest. Just don't think Red Bull wants Tsunoda in that position, which is so strange, isn't it? So strange, considering he has been very, very good this season. He's beaten all the teammates that they've put in front of him. I know he didn't beat Gasly necessarily, but he definitely started to get closer and closer to Gasly as their time together sort of came towards an end. And then on top of that, I think he beat Nick de Vries quite comfortably. He beat Daniel Ricciardo quite comfortably. It's awkward because the 5 races Liam Lawson had last year were probably the 5 worst races of the season for Tsunoda, because he ended up having quite a few issues with DNFs and problems with the car. And then this year, again, I think Lawson has done quite well against Tsunoda, although I would still say Tsunoda is the top driver in that team. Netflix did a really good job with Senna. Haven't finished it yet. Yeah, it was really good, actually. We watched episode 2 yesterday. If you are a member or a patron, or you would like to become a member or patron, that is one of the benefits that you get. We do watch-alongs for those kind of things. So Netflix series, documentaries that are coming out, films in the future. We'll probably try and watch the Formula 1 film together at some point. And then also maybe some old school races as well. We were having a little look at the best races from the past generation of cars to see which ones we fancied watching. So yeah, if you do want to become a member or a patron, that is one of the perks, alongside lots and lots of other little bits that you get. Could you wish me good luck? Sure. Are you doing a league race on Roblox? I have never touched Roblox in my life. I know. Apologies. Yuki needs a Red Bull seat. That's the thing, isn't it? Sign Alonso to Red Bull. That was the rumor earlier in the season, but I think he's signed, sealed, and delivered now for Aston Martin. And I think that Aston Martin contract will be watertight. I think Aston Martin will have done everything possible to make sure that Fernando Alonso stays for that entire duration of time, because he is the shining light of the team, isn't he? When you look at Lance Stroll's performances over the course of the year, it's been pretty disappointing overall. Let's see, though. Oh, shall we? What? No Roblox? I'm sorry. I feel like I'm too old for it. I don't know when Roblox really became a thing. I feel like I was just beyond that kind of... I have bought a Steam Deck recently, which I have not got on my desk. I assume it's probably in the other room because I was playing it the other day. Mr. V has already touched Roblox. That's very true. Yeah, I did see that video. Maybe Mr. V is more set out for it. What do I think about Checo in 25? I think he'll be replaced. It's impossible to know at this point. I think Red Bull have had more than enough chances to replace him and still haven't. So this is just one more opportunity. Is it the opportunity that they finally take? hopefully, like hopefully so. I do think it is a shame. You know, you look at the Drivers' Championship, for instance, and you look at the fact that all 7 drivers at the top there have won multiple races this season, have been in contention for many a podium, have been right up there. And we always talk about them as kind of fluctuating in form. You know, we had Charles Leclerc started the season well, dipped in the middle, but now is probably the most informed driver, at least sort of from summer, or just before summer break to kind of 3 or 4 races ago. Charles Leclerc, probably the most informed driver by a considerable margin. Oscar Piastri, similar. Like, everyone seems to have had twos and fro's throughout the season, but Sergio Perez is very much a first 6 races, fairly good. Like, did what maybe expected, but Red Bull were the quickest car. Soon as Red Bull were not the quickest car, dropped off massively, like dramatically, to the point where since Liam Lawson's been in RB, I think Perez has only been in Q3 twice. And, you know, if you look at Nico Hülkenberg has been in there more than that. Yuki Tsunoda's been in there more than that. Is a tough sell to be like, yeah, Sergio Perez is doing what he should be doing. And then you look at just the points difference. The fact that Max Verstappen has 3 times the amount of points as Sergio Perez. Then you look at the kind of gap between the other teammates, sort of 50 points or so, 50, 60 points between Norris and Piastri. Again, similar between Leclerc and Sainz, sort of 50, 60 points. Mercedes even closer because they haven't had those huge point swings in the same way. So Russell and Hamilton, sort of 20 points adrift. That's what you expect the gap to be, right? Especially for those top teams where points are fairly readily available. 50 or 60 points across a whole season. Take that as 20 races, say. That's 3 points a race. So Norris has just beaten Piastri by about 3 points a race. Leclerc beaten Sainz by about 3 points a race. If you look at that, that's very tight margins. And 3 points, as I say, especially if you're winning races here and there. Sergio Perez, the fact that he is nearly 300 points adrift of Max Verstappen over the course of 20 races. No, it's 24, but I'm just doing the easy maths, right? So 300 races, 300 points over 20 races. It's 15 points per race that Max Verstappen is gaining on Sergio Perez, just with that quick fire maths. So the gap between the other teammates is like 3 points or less. And then the gap between Verstappen and Perez consistently is around 15 points. That is just madness to me. I think that's the stat that I would be pushing if I was Red Bull. To be like, look at the telemetries, look at this, and just go, how have you fallen so far away from Max? You know, Max has also had a few DNFs. I know Sergio Perez has had a few DNFs in there, but Max has had a couple of DNFs this season too. It's just so strange. We are about to get underway. Yes, indeed. Hello, Gamer Boy. How are we doing? F1 telecast starts officially. The intro song is running. It is indeed. We are about to get underway. Checo was so good in Racing Point, early part of Red Bull. I think he should go to a mid-team. Maybe it is that kind of, if he was the big fish in the small pond, he kind of looked really, really good. As soon as you get up to the big teams, the pressure is different expectations on you. Max is one where Checo struggles. Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Ferrari for the win. You reckon? Ooh. Is there someone who didn't DNF at all this season? I doubt it. Just like through law of averages. Probably. I'm trying to think now. Piastri? I can't think of a Piastri DNF, if I'm honest. Alonso, yeah. Hülkenberg, yeah. Gasly, yeah. Tsunoda, yeah. Stroll, yeah. Yeah, my guess would be Piastri. Trix agrees with me. Yeah. Say Piastri. I think everyone else has had at least one. I know that Pierre Gasly is the only driver that hasn't done any damage to his car. Is that still the case? I think that's still the case. That Pierre Gasly is the sole driver yet to have caused any damage through like crashes, if you know what I mean. There you go. Oscar hasn't had a DNF. I've ruined it now. That could have been a great like postseason quiz question. If we did like a end of the year quiz, I feel like that could definitely be one of the questions in there, right? Which driver has not? This season's pole count: Max, Norris, Russell, Leclerc, Sainz. Interesting that Russell's above Leclerc. Actually, wouldn't have expected that. I thought Leclerc would be third in that list. But Russell third in the list with 4 pole positions. Yeah, I suppose that does make sense. When the Mercedes is good, it is good. It's just only good 4 or 5 times a year. it's the problem that they've got. Okay, let's get into it then. Let me quickly just load up the stream. Some driver radio messages already coming in. Sergio Perez, Max Verstappen. Modest point. Not sure what Verstappen is talking about there, but here's what it is. Quickly change that around. Lovely. If we could, I don't know, it's the final race of the season. We're celebrating the 2024 year coming to an end. But if we could hit that like button and maybe even the subscribe button, I don't think the chance of us hitting 110,000 subscribers is dwindling away. We were trying to get there. To be fair, we were trying to hit 100 before the end of the year. Then we got there at Singapore. I was like, maybe we could be cheeky. Maybe another 10K. I think we're at 9,000. So we need 1,000 subscribers in the next 24 hours. Which I don't think the channel has ever done in any sense. So I do think that is done and dusted. But a like would be lovely. A like on the stream would be amazing. Maybe just open up, you know, one of the videos in another tab. Let that play out in the background, you know. That would be absolutely amazing. As we do get to the beginning of qualifying, the green light is showing. The timer is starting to fall. And nobody is out on track. Everybody watching and waiting. Doesn't want to be the first driver to blink. I do think that we are going to see the lap times fairly swiftly depreciate, to be honest, in terms of this track livening up and the tires getting into the right window. Can you explain in layman's terms what happens with wind tunnel time regarding winning the Constructors' Championship? Yeah, sure, layman's terms. If you look at the Constructors' Championship, there's 2 things at play. The higher up in the Constructors' Championship you finish, the more money your team gets in prize money. So Constructors' Championship is actually what determines the prize money, more so than the Drivers' Championship. So the teams, in terms of finances, will be looking at the Constructors' Championship and wanting to finish as high as possible in the Constructors' Championship. The thing that then balances that out, and the thing that you've got on the other side, is the lower down in the Constructors' Championship you finish, the more wind tunnel time you get. So let's say instead of, if there was 100 wind tunnel tests that the teams were allowed to do across the season, okay, and they get 10 each, these are not the numbers, but I'm just sort of, each team gets 10 wind tunnel tests across the year. Basically, what happens is instead of each team getting exactly 10 and it splitting evenly, the team who finishes top of the Constructors' Championship are only allowed, say, 6 wind tunnel tests, whereas the team that finishes bottom of the Constructors' Championship are allowed 15 or 16 wind tunnel tests. So if you finish further down the Constructors' Championship, you get more allotted time in the wind tunnel, and you are allowed more opportunities to run your car in the wind tunnel, which allows you to, hopefully, progress your car further and faster, so to try and sort of squidge the gap. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You want to finish higher because you want the prize money. You also want to finish lower because then you get more wind tunnel time. And it's all in all, the money is more of a factor for a lot of the teams. So a lot of the teams would much prefer to finish a place higher up, win an extra $10 million, sorry, rather than have another 10 or so wind tunnel runs. It kind of ends up being the balance. So teams do still want to win the Constructors' Championship rather than the wind tunnel time. But yeah, wind tunnel time is super important. So having that extra wind tunnel time, if you do finish lower down, is a little bit of a benefit for you. And again, just means that we end up seeing that gap not quite being ridiculous. Lance Purple in the sector. He is the only car that is running like a fast lap right now. Hamilton, Russell, Alonso also out on track. Lance Stroll very late on the brakes, actually, as he was trying to get past the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. George Russell also dispatched by the Aston Martin. Of course, they are not on flying laps, but Lance Stroll is going to be the first driver to set the standard here in qualifying. Oh, gets a little bit out of shape through the chicane at turn 6 and turn 7. Does Lance Stroll. All the way down the straight. You got to get that chicane right, because turn 8 isn't really a turn. You're all the way down to turn 9. Turn 9, a good overtaking opportunity during the race. We've seen drivers go for those overtaking maneuvers there down in towards turn 9. Then you're sort of through turn 10 into the twisty final sector here. Lance Stroll under the hotel section. That corner where Nicholas Latifi found the barriers in 2021, of course. Around the final corner comes Lance Stroll across the line for a 1:24.3. The Canadian, I don't think, will sit on provisional pole for too long there, but gets us underway at least. We are starting to see some drivers enter the fray. Russell and Hamilton are now starting their flying laps, just coming around the final corner together. Perez, Colapinto's out on track now. Albon also, Tsunoda, Verstappen, Joe, Leclerc, Sainz. The drivers just starting to form a little bit of a queue in the pit lane. It's a bit of a weird pit lane, this one, because you have to go underneath the racetrack. So you'll see them go through the tunnel, which goes underneath the pit straight. And you come out the other side of the track. Near turn 2 is where you exit the pit lane here in Abu Dhabi. It's a bit of a weird pit exit. Does mean that obviously the pit exit is a little bit contentious. If you do end up trying to overtake and maybe crashing in that little tunnel, it could cause some headaches for Formula 1 in general. Sergio Perez then coming around the final corner to start his first flying lap time. I'm keeping an eye on the two Mercedes drivers. No, they both came in, did Hamilton and Russell. I was just trying to find them, and they're in the pits. That's why I can't find them. So even though they did come out and had a little run around, they were maybe not feeling those tyres. A little bit of a setup change. Sergio Perez then through the first sector is purple. Beats Lance Stroll's first sector time. It's a 17.1 from the Mexican. Sergio Perez has been pretty good in Abu Dhabi over the years. It's one of his better tracks, you would say. Getting very close indeed to the curbs. Sergio Perez using every millimeter of track. Is there an incline down there? As in the pit straight? Not pit straight, the pit exit. Yes, yeah. So they go down a little hill underneath the track, so underneath turn 1, and then up and back out at turn 2. And a dip into a little tunnel underneath the track. Sergio Perez coming around the final couple of corners then, keeping an eye on his lap time in comparison to Stroll. And goes so quicker by 0.8 of a second, although Max Verstappen already going quicker in the first sector than his teammate. So the lap times are finally going to start coming our way. We are nearly 8 minutes into the first qualifying session and still only 2 times on the board. I know that is a slightly longer lap around here. You're into the 120s, but still a lot of drivers leaving it a touch later than I was anticipating. The lap times are going to start coming around. Colapinto across the line. goes third fastest. Alex Albon across the line. Oh, Sergio Perez, lap time deleted. Albon goes quickest of anybody so far then. 1:24.1. Max Verstappen going much quicker than that, though. Currently goes purple in the second sector as well. Yuki Tsunoda a 1:24 dead. Franco Colapinto gets his lap time deleted as well. Charles Leclerc coming around the final sector now. Carlos Sainz has gone quickly through the middle part of the lap. Max Verstappen really does jump up the time required to get up to top spot. 1:23.5. Zhou Guanyu slots in third fastest at this moment in time in his Stake Sauber car. Charles Leclerc can only go second quickest to Verstappen. A couple attempts adrift of the four-time world champion. Carlos Sainz now the next driver to come around the final corner for Ferrari and does manage to grab it. Carlos Sainz, that final sector for him was the deciding factor. A 1:23.4, 0.03 of a second quicker than Max Verstappen's time so far. Liam Lawson goes seventh fastest as Valtteri Bottas then also joins Zhou Guanyu. They're fifth and sixth for Stake Sauber. Bottas ahead of Zhou. Lando Norris just coming around towards the final sector. Piastri was the fastest man in the first sector so far. So here come the McLarens. We're expecting these two to definitely be in contention for pole here this weekend as they consolidate a possible Constructors' Championship win, the first in nearly 3 decades. Kevin Magnussen goes third fastest, and actually Magnussen stays quicker than Lando Norris and also Piastri. Piastri in fourth now, Norris fifth, but Kevin Magnussen in third spot. And the Haas car looking really, really swift. Nico Hülkenberg was mighty quick in free practice too as well. Sauber finally remembered they were in the same sport 22 races in. I think it's just been a weird season for Stake Sauber, isn't it? It's going to be a weird next season as well. George Russell coming around for Mercedes has just finished the middle sector. So keep an eye on his time as he's going to come across the start-finish line fairly soon. Lewis Hamilton in his final qualifying session for Mercedes will want to go out on a high. So many pole positions have gone to the Great Britain in his time in silver. Will he be able to add one more of them this afternoon? He's looked fairly swift over the free practice sessions. And George Russell only goes 8th fastest, just behind Nico Hülkenberg, who is 7th fastest right now. It's looking like Haas are the 4th fastest team at this moment in time. Lewis Hamilton comes across the line, a 10th slower than his teammate, but inside of the top 10. So Perez and Colapinto, with their lap times deleted, are the two drivers that we haven't yet seen come across the line and set an official time. It is Jack Doohan, Liam Lawson, Alex Albon, who join Sergio Perez and Colapinto in the bottom 5. So they are the 5 drivers that need to improve. Ooh. Sergio Perez. Yeah, is that? Oh, no, he does. I mean, it was maybe millimeters, but it does look like Sergio Perez crosses both white lines and therefore lap time deleted for lap 1. And Colapinto just gets all out of shape down towards turn 1. So that wouldn't have been a fairly swift lap from Colapinto anyway with that kind of mistake. And Carlos Sainz then tops the timing sheets at the moment. He managed to put in a lap that was 0.03 of a second quicker than Max Verstappen. Kevin Magnussen sitting in the top 3 for Haas. Both of the McLarens behind that. Charles Leclerc in 6th place. Again, we don't really know what Charles Leclerc's strategy is going to be here. I think just try and get pole, and then that 10th place penalty takes you to 11th. But keep that in mind. Both of the Williams cars also carrying 5-place grid penalties. So don't know if Williams will really be that concerned about trying to get outside of the bottom 5 here. I mean, Albon and Colapinto will certainly go for it, but with the 5-place grid penalties, it's going to be tough for them. They will, maximum, I'm imagining Alex Albon or Franco Colapinto could qualify maybe 10th. And therefore, you're sort of starting from 15th anyway, and it becomes a little bit more complicated. Oh, thank you for subscribing to the channel. Massively appreciate that. We might get 109,000. We're very, very close to that. So let's push for 109,000. And if you are enjoying this, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It does really, really help out if you do drop a like onto the streams, like more than you would probably expect. Haas is determined to pip Alpine in the constructor spot. I think so. I think Haas, you look at the whole season, you would say Haas probably deserve it more. Really, Alpine are being carried by one weird weekend in Brazil. And I know that the Alpine car has been way more competitive in the second half of the season compared to the first half of the season. But I do think we would... Ooh, it's getting very busy in the pit lane. People argued who the GOAT is. The true GOAT this season is the Williams mechanics. Yeah, I think that's fair. They have put together so many cars, haven't they? If there's a team that deserves the winter break, it is the Williams team. My goodness me. I imagine they're just going to get home after Abu Dhabi and just be exhausted. Like, just do nothing until Christmas, lads, because you have more than deserved what you have been able to put in over the course of the season. Franco Colapinto, though, putting in a decent little first and second sector, improving. Albon a little bit off the pace in the second sector compared to what he was first time around. We have only got 3.5 minutes left to play out here. Franco Colapinto is going to come around the final corner for Williams. Maybe has a chance to do one more lap. He only goes 11th fastest, 23.9. Alex Albon up to 10th fastest, drops his teammate down to 12th, but Albon splits the Mercedes. And Alex Albon a 123.8. Hulkenberg on the radio. Not very happy about the traffic in the pit lane. I think it's because everybody had the same idea. Everyone wanted to leave it as late as possible. It's going to be really awkward to get those tyres back into the working window here. And Nico Hulkenberg just sort of showing his frustrations over the radio a little bit. Here comes Lance Stroll down the hill and through the tunnel at the end of the pit lane. Jack Doohan there as well. Let's see. Oh, there's a replay. Possibly... I think it's all right. Oh, yeah, it got very complicated. Bit of a Valtteri Bottas almost hit into the side of Sergio Perez. Did well to not hit into the side of Sergio Perez, and then both of the RB cars were also. Oh, there you go. Sergio Perez's time will be reinstated. So they have double checked it. It is marginal. We're talking millimeters. Sergio Perez's time has been reinstated. That jumps him up to 3rd fastest. The Red Bull car looking pretty good all of a sudden as we get into qualifying. Bottas, Gasly, Joe, Doohan and Lawson then, the 5 drivers that are currently out of qualifying as it stands, but they've got 1 minute and 40 seconds to rectify that. Here comes Valtteri Bottas. Through the first sector, has improved on his time, but so has Tsunoda behind him, and it's going to get very tight indeed. Tsunoda on the bubble in 15th place. Will his weekend burst before it's even really started? Tsunoda's usually pretty swift around here. I remember him getting a 4th place finish, I think in 2021. And then last season was also very, very good here in Abu Dhabi. Tsunoda does like this track. Just over 1 minute left to go then. Here comes Bottas across the line. Wow. Valtteri Bottas just gone quickest overall, a 123.4. So that basically guarantees that he's through to the next round of qualifying. And Lewis Hamilton being told on the radio This will be tight. Track is starting to come towards them, isn't it? Valtteri Bottas going quickest. Everybody is improving by the looks of things. Liam Lawson just trying to sieve his way through the traffic, get across the start-finish line. He goes 11th fastest, quicker than his teammate Tsunoda there. Let's put Zhou Guanyu back in the problematic 15th place slot, and Lewis Hamilton is now in the bottom 5. Gasly crosses the line and improves to 4th fastest. Everybody, the lap times are tumbling, and is going to get very, very tight indeed. Charles Leclerc comes across the line to take the checkered flag, and a 1:23.3. Carlos Sainz is still in the pits. So those two drivers completed. Albon can't improve, and he's 15th at the moment. So it's looking like Albon will probably drop into the bottom 5. Colapinto is already confirmed to be out of qualifying as well. Lando Norris comes across the line but doesn't improve. Stays 9th fastest in the McLaren car. Russell and Hamilton both out for Mercedes. Russell in 14th at the moment. Hamilton 17th. Both under pressure to improve. As Max Verstappen sets the fastest middle sector of anybody, but stays 4th fastest as he takes the checkered flag. Hamilton has improved in the middle sector, but it was a slow first sector from Lewis Hamilton. It's going to be very, very tight indeed. As Bono told him over the radio, Lewis Hamilton, in his final qualifying session for Mercedes, will it be an exit in Q1? George Russell comes around the final corner. He goes across the line to go 9th fastest and put himself away from the drop zone. Fernando Alonso has gone 15th fastest to put Albon down in the bottom 5. Can Hamilton improve? No! Hamilton P18 and Hamilton out of qualifying. Alex Albon, Zhou Guanyu, Lewis Hamilton, Franco Colapinto, and Jack Doohan, the 5 drivers that are out of qualifying. That is... Where's his pace disappeared from? He looks really good. And Lewis Hamilton saying on the radio, apologizing to the team and saying, you know what, guys, I messed up there. So, I think... Sorry. I think what happened there was just didn't get the tyres in the right window. It was a bit rushed, you know. Bono was on the radio saying, like, look, this is going to be tight, Lewis. Hurry it up a little bit. I think Mercedes just tried to be a little bit too clever with Hamilton coming across the line last of anybody. And Lewis Hamilton's season ends. Oh! And there was a bollard there. I think that was underneath Lewis Hamilton's car. I think Lewis Hamilton had a... and Lewis on the radio saying that he put in a bad lap. Not very happy about it. And Toto Wolff agreeing, saying, yeah, Lewis, if you could in a little bit of a better lap, that would be nice. Ah, that's where it was. So Kevin Magnussen had to get out of the way of cars coming. Magnussen knocked a bollard. Oh, and it was the bollard. Got stuck underneath Lewis Hamilton's car. So that was where the lap went wrong. And Lewis Hamilton complaining about the car not being in the right situation. And I think that bollard underneath Lewis Hamilton's car, I mean, we can really... I don't know whether that was underneath the car for that long. It still wasn't a brilliant lap from Lewis Hamilton, but if that cost him a couple attempts in the final corner, that was all it needed, really. It was very, very tight between Fernando Alonso and Alex Albon. You know, Lewis Hamilton, less than a tenth away from it. Only 5 tenths separating Lewis Hamilton from pole position. So it's very, very tight in there. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton now out of qualifying after that bollard did get stuck underneath the Mercedes car. And as soon as it's underneath there, it's just completely ruining all of the aerodynamics. You know, the cars are not designed to have a bollard underneath them as they try and go around the final couple of corners of the lap. So, yeah, bad luck for Lewis Hamilton there a little bit. But also, it's just unfortunate that that's the way that the cookie is crumbled for Lewis Hamilton, isn't it? just kind of summarizes his season, his final season with Mercedes. Of any driver, if you were going to pick the driver that was going to have a bollard get stuck underneath their car for their final couple of corners during their pivotal qualifying lap, probably going to be Lewis Hamilton, isn't it? It's just had an absolutely horrible season in that Mercedes car. On top of that, obviously, the other 5 drivers there, Albon, Zhou, Colapinto, and Doohan. They will also be out of qualifying now. Albon and Colapinto, 5-place grid penalties, by the way. So they will drop to the back of the pack. So at least Hamilton will pick up 1 more place in front of Alex Albon. He'll start 17th. Doohan also will mean that he starts a couple of places above as both the Williams cars drop down in terms of that running order. But we go into Q2 now. 5 more drivers again looking to drop out of this one. That's not Lewis's fault. Yeah, exactly. There's nothing that he could do there. Absolutely nothing that he could do. Kevin Magnussen hits the bollard. The bollard is in the middle of the track. And to be fair, Kevin Magnussen is trying to get out of the way of Lewis Hamilton. You know, he's trying to jump out of Lewis Hamilton's way so that Hamilton can still hit the apex at that final chicane there through turn 14. Oh, sorry, not chicane. Through turn 14. And then just ends up being a little bit dreadful. Hamilton had already, you know, had a pretty poor lap to begin with. Oscar better take his first ever pole position today. I mean, the McLaren cars, maybe they were holding back a little bit, but 8th and 10th fastest, they didn't look exactly the form that we were maybe expecting. I was expecting a McLaren pretty comfortable 1-2 throughout qualifying, to be honest. Kevin Magnussen, it does. No, yeah, Hamilton can do absolutely nothing about that. The bollard is literally on the apex. I doubt he even sees it because it is so close to when Lewis Hamilton then picks up that bollard. He's so close to the corner already once the bollard gets strewn across the track. So obviously then, yeah, look at that. The shape that his car is in through the final couple of corners because of that bollard underneath is pretty horrendous. My opinion on the Cadillac F1 seats. I think there's a lot of drivers that are in contention for it. It depends what Cadillac really want to go for. You know, that I'm imagining they're not going to be the super competitive straight away. You know, you're not imagining that they're going to be able to pick up probably any of the drivers that are already confirmed to the Formula One grid, with the exception of Yuki Tsunoda, who is out of contract at the end of the year. But almost every single other team has their drivers settled in for the foreseeable future. I think they'll probably end up going for maybe some Formula One experience in the guise of Daniel Ricciardo, Valtteri Bottas, one of those drivers that has a lot of experience towards the top end as well. But also is a good driver for the team to build from initially. And then they can go either way, right? They either go for the rookie. So do they get in someone with a little bit less Formula One experience, but has been in and around Formula One? Or do they get somebody over from their IndyCar project? They obviously have the Andretti Formula E team as well to be thinking about. So there's a lot of options for Cadillac moving forward. What season is my favorite in F1 history? Oof. That is a great question. 2012 was stunning. 2021, very, very good as well. Liam Lawson, not very happy at all. George Russell. Also very happy at all. George Russell trying to go super wide. It all got a little bit chaotic towards the end there in that final couple of corners. Obviously, lots of drivers trying to leave it as late as possible to get across the start-finish line. Got a little bit messy in Abu Dhabi. We are 30 seconds or so before qualifying 2 gets underway. 2016 season. Yeah. Great shout. Great shout. 2008. I didn't really watch the 2008 season. I know. I was young. I feel like that's the kind of season that I should try and build the time to go back and watch at some point. Why are we watching a child that is now sitting on top of like some sort of tower? There's a child on top of a tower. And we're watching them watch the Formula One. Wouldn't want to see American drivers join American teams only. Oh, I mean, we had Logan Sargent, an American driver, not in an American team. So there's I think it's more that they'd want an American driver in the same way that Stake Sauber have picked up Nico Hülkenberg because Audi want a German driver. You know, when you are building a new team in that way, having that kind of relationship between the nationality of the team and the nationality of the driver is quite a big selling point. Like, makes quite a lot of money for the team because they can market it in that way. You can kind of be like, we are the American team, we have an American driver, so you can support the American driver inside of the American team, and that will get American fans kind of excited, you know? That will get American fans to start supporting that team. And a lot of the time when you start supporting a team, you kind of always have a little bit of a soft spot for them. You know what I mean? We are underway, though, in Q2. Max Verstappen is going to be the first driver to set a flying lap time by the looks of things. As Sally has just said, if you could leave a like, subscribe, that'd be absolutely amazing. I don't know how many likes we're on, actually. I have not been keeping track of it. Just been enjoying the vibes of qualifying without watching too much of the analytics of it. Why did Verstappen move first? I think just wanted to get a clean lap, to be honest. A lot of the drivers complaining about the amount of traffic, and you're seeing it now. Everybody trying to come out at the exact same time. All the drivers coming into the pit lane. Oh, Russell is now being noted for possibly impeding Liam Lawson in that final flying lap for the RB driver. But there's now sort of, 10 drivers in the pit lane. So maybe Max Verstappen just didn't want to be part of that. And even though he's got to go out a little bit earlier, he just means he gets an actual run at the corners without having any real problems. I mean, he's going to have to contend with the traffic now on his flying lap, but will have hopefully got his tyres into a nicer position because he didn't have to contend with any traffic on the out lap. So it's that balance between the two and which one he wanted to go for. Bottas 1 place grid penalty. Maybe. See how Liam Lawson goes about talking to the stewards. Valtteri Bottas in the mix, though. Zhou Guanyu unfortunately dropped out in 17th, but Valtteri Bottas was super quick in that first qualifying session. I'm keeping an eye on him. He's just coming towards the end of the pit lane as we see it. But we are seeing Russell coming around now. So Russell, Magnussen, Hülkenberg, Leclerc, Sainz going to be setting fast laps in that order. Max Verstappen just moving past Carlos Sainz as he's already on his flying lap. Purple sectors, of course, being set by Max Verstappen, the first man to set a lap time. Here we go. George Russell just coming through the first sector, Verstappen around the final corner. A 122.9 from Max Verstappen. I like that. Red Bull looking very swift indeed. And they did it in Qatar, didn't they? They managed to just find some pace between Friday and Saturday. Maybe they've been able to do the same here in that Red Bull garage. And Max Verstappen looking very swift indeed. Purple in the first sector still. George Russell about 0.5 of a second off Max Verstappen just through the middle sector. So looking unlikely that George Russell's going to trouble Max Verstappen for pole position this time around as it was last week in Qatar. If I were to meet my motorsport hero, who would it be? Jenson Button is my favourite Formula One driver, probably of all time. Because he was the driver that I started supporting. Glory hunter that I was back in the day. Kevin Magnussen then comes across the line. Not a great lap from Kevin Magnussen. Nico Hülkenberg, much better. 0.5 of a second off Verstappen. Goes second fastest. The Haas car is looking very much in contention for a couple of Q3 spots. Charles Leclerc comes across the line 4th fastest. Here comes Carlos Sainz to go second fastest behind Verstappen once again. Lando Norris, though, has gone quickest of anybody through the first sector there. Purple for Lando Norris through the first sector and purple through the final sector. The middle portion of the lap costing Lando Norris, and he now goes a 10th slower than Max Verstappen. Ooh, Charles Leclerc got all out of shape round turn 14. Maybe just got a little bit of dirty air. I think there was an Alpine in front of him, possibly of Pierre Gasly. And just about caught it before he went into the wall. And Charles Leclerc, that's where he lost that lap time, which put him 7th place. It's super tight. Remember, Lewis Hamilton dropped out of qualifying there. He was only 0.5 adrift of Max Verstappen's fastest lap time. Very, very close. Like, these lap times are going to get incredibly tight between these top 15 drivers. And of course, 5 of them not making it through into Q3. Oscar Piastri has gone quickest of anybody through the first sector, but then is a 10th down through the middle sector. McLaren car just not quite being able to put it all together during that middle part of the lap by the looks of things at the moment. Oscar Piastri, can he make up for that time through the final sector? It's a used set of tyres on Oscar Piastri's car, so there is more to come from the McLaren if they put a fresh set of soft compound tyres on for Piastri's second run. But can he go quickest for now? No, just stays 3rd fastest, slots in behind his teammate by a 10th. So Verstappen, Norris, Piastri now our top 3. We have seen all the drivers complete a flying lap time. And it is Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Kevin Magnussen, Valtteri Bottas, and Pierre Gasly that need to improve. See if we can see who's going to drop out. So we're looking at both of the Red Bull drivers likely through, both of the McLarens, both of the Ferraris, those top 6 set. George Russell in the mix there as well. So 3 spaces available for those drivers in the midfield teams, you could say. Tsunoda, Lawson, Hülkenberg, currently the 3 that are in there. Alonso, Stroll, Magnussen, Bottas, and Gasly all in with a shout. Bottas has looked pretty swift in that first qualifying session. Kevin Magnussen's Haas has looked very good indeed. Gasly's been in great form. Fernando Alonso being a lot more positive about his Aston Martin car today compared to yesterday. Lance Stroll, of course, has got 1 pole position to his name in Formula One. Something that a lot of drivers can't argue. But Lance Stroll has managed it. So never say never. Valtteri Bottas just coming into the pit lane. Fresh set of soft compound tyres needed. Bottas getting a little bit warm. Pulling up the visor. Letting that cool air flow through. Hopefully just must be a really lovely feeling. Just opening up that visor. Letting the air actually into the helmet. Especially track like this, super hot in Abu Dhabi. Tsunoda P4 out of nowhere. Tsunoda's good in Abu Dhabi. Tsunoda's quick here. Tsunoda has a really, really solid record in Abu Dhabi. That's why I think RB are out of the championship fight, though. I think it's just a little bit too much of an ask for RB to get in front of Haas or Alpine in terms of the constructors. But I wouldn't say never, because Yuki Tsunoda, pretty good. Ooh, and Carlos Sainz complaining about Sergio Perez getting in the way of him through turn 12. Lost a 10th or so. And that's the thing here. You lose a 10th and you're suddenly tumbling down the order quite dramatically. Max Verstappen actually out of the car and taking his helmet off is Max Verstappen, possibly deciding that he doesn't need to do another flying lap here. And it is getting very, very busy in the pit lane once again. It's crazy, isn't it? How crazy. Like, everybody wants to be on the track at the same time. So it just gets super, super hectic. Now we just have to watch the cars queue up in the pit lane. Unfortunately, the McLaren cars join in the back of the queue. I can't see Valtteri Bottas there. I think Valtteri Bottas is still in the garage because there's a... But we're now looking... Arthur Leclerc there. Charles Leclerc's brother. Of course, you got to see him in a Ferrari car in free practice 1. Joe and Bottas duo will be missed. Yeah, I think they are a lovely little pair, aren't they? In terms of teammates. You never see any animosity between those two. They just kind of get the job done. But then at the same time, there can't be much animosity when you're fighting for P17 a lot of the time, right? It's just doesn't quite have the same venom behind it as fighting for victories. So I think next season will be crazy. Yes. Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be similar to this season, honestly, in terms of unpredictability, but maybe from the start rather than from sort of 6-7 races in. Charles Leclerc on the radio. And complaining about, I can't see which AlphaTauri. Oh, sorry. He said, I think his Yuki Tsunoda is just crossed the white line there a touch. And Leclerc not very happy about that. Having to drive around the front wing of the RB. Love that Charles Leclerc even still calls it an AlphaTauri. Just shows that the rebrand hasn't really gone too well when one of the Formula 1 drivers is still calling it by the wrong name. So, Max Verstappen then has indeed decided to sit out of this one. Verstappen, a 122.9. He thinks that's more than enough to get through. I think I agree with him and the Red Bull team. So he's actually jumped out of the car. Norris, Piastri, Tsunoda, Sainz, Hülkenberg, Russell, Lawson, Perez, and Leclerc. Currently the drivers that would join him inside the top 10 for Q3. Alonso, Stroll, Magnussen, Bottas, and Gasly, the 5 drivers that need to improve. And beyond that, Albon, Joe, Hamilton, Colapinto, Jack Doohan all the way at the back of the pack there. And those 5 drivers already out. Why did Leclerc get a pen? Because he had to replace the ERS, which is effectively like the battery component of the power unit. Here we are then. Pierre Gasly improving through the middle sector. Kevin Magnussen just coming around the final corner. Can he get himself out of that bottom 5? No. Magnussen, 11 fastest. That's not going to get him into Q3. So Magnussen is going to fall where Hülkenberg then goes 2nd fastest. And there's only 0.04 of a second off Verstappen's time. So Hülkenberg effectively cementing himself inside of the top 10 for Q3. Here comes Pierre Gasly. Can he get himself into the top 10? For now, yes. He goes 3rd fastest. Does Pierre Gasly? He was improving and improving. And Alpine keeping themselves in contention for that 6th place in the Constructors. despite Hulkenberg putting together one of the laps of his life. Sergio Perez comes across the line 7th fastest. Let's put Charles Leclerc into the bottom 5, by the way. Liam Lawson in 10th place, under pressure. Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll both improving. Lance Stroll is going to come across the line first for the Aston Martin team. Both of the Aston Martins down there in the bottom 5. Kevin Magnussen, I don't think, is on another flying lap, so he is out. Valtteri Bottas is, though, on a flying lap. Lance Stroll takes the checkered flag, only goes 10th fastest. That does put Liam Lawson down into the bottom 5 if they can't improve. Fernando Alonso, though, I think is going quicker and does go 6th fastest. Does Fernando Alonso. That puts Lance Stroll, his teammate, out of qualifying. Lawson, Leclerc and Bottas in the bottom 5 right now, but on flying laps. Here comes Charles Leclerc to go fastest of anybody. A 122.9, takes provisional pole and drops his teammate, Carlos Sainz, into the bottom 5. Oh, and I think it might be deleted for Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz goes quickest. And a 10-place grid penalty for Charles Leclerc and dropping out in the bottom 5. Wow, Charles Leclerc is going to start last of everybody. I think that is going to be deleted for Leclerc. It is indeed Leclerc, 13th fastest. Liam Lawson coming around the final corner. Can he improve? No. Goes 11th fastest. Tsunoda under pressure. Can Valtteri Bottas then, the final man that can get himself up into the top 10. He's improved in the first sector. He's improved in the second sector. The stakes Sauber car in his final race in Formula 1 for the team. He gets there. Valtteri Bottas up into the top 10. And he goes 9th fastest. Drops Yuki Tsunoda down into that bottom 5. And it is Tsunoda, Lawson, Stroll, Charles Leclerc, and Kevin Magnussen, the 5 drivers to drop out of it. Of course, Leclerc, with a 10-place grid penalty, he's going to start from the back of the pack. And Charles Leclerc needed a little bit of a boost today. And Charles Leclerc is, let's have a little look then at turn 1. How wide was he? I mean, we can't tell from that camera angle. There we go. Oh, I think he does. I think there's a tiny little bit of blue that you can see to the left-hand side of the Ferrari car as it goes through turn 1. I think that has been deleted correctly. And Charles Leclerc then out of qualifying. Valtteri Bottas, though, very happy indeed. That's as fast as she goes, as Valtteri Bottas says. Bottas up into the top 10. Could Bottas get some points on the board? It'd be lovely to see. It's always a little bit disappointing when a driver doesn't manage to score points across an entire season. I know that Bottas has been in a scenario where his car for 20 of the 24 races has been nowhere near competitive enough to even think about getting points, but love that from Valtteri Bottas. Possibly his final race in Formula 1. Obviously, doesn't have a contract for next season anywhere. And as much as he's been talked about that Cadillac possibility, again, we never know how that's going to play out. So it could be the final time we see Valtteri Bottas in Formula 1. And he's put in a stellar qualifying performance. He was always really rapid in qualifying, wasn't he, Valtteri Bottas, when he was at Mercedes as well, and Williams before that. Now just showing that quality once more. I think Lewis can fight back next season, or at least in 2026 with the new regulations. I mean, yeah, Lewis Hamilton is a quality driver. You don't win world championships. I know that you can say, oh, he's had the fastest car, but you get yourself to the point where you deserve to be in the fastest car, and also to the point where actually you're just putting in stunning, stunning races, which we've seen from Lewis Hamilton a lot of the time. I would not say that he is completely out of the running for a possible championship victory in a Ferrari, if Ferrari can deliver a car that is quick enough. Obviously, today, he's not having the best of times, but can you blame him? He got hit by a bollard on the final couple of corners, had a bollard stuck underneath his Mercedes car, and you can't really say that took a couple of attempts off his lap time, dropped him down into 18th, probably would have got through to Q2 otherwise, and then maybe he'd have got through to Q3 as well, but we'll never know. And just really, really unlucky for Lewis Hamilton there. But he dropped out in Q1. It was Tsunoda, Lawson, Stroll, Leclerc, and Magnussen, the 5 drivers to drop out of Q2. Of course, Charles Leclerc with a 10-place grid penalty, so he's going to drop all the way to the back of the pack, even with... actually, Colapinto has a 5-place grid penalty, which also puts him 24th. I think because Charles Leclerc has a higher grid penalty, he'll start behind him. I think Charles Leclerc will now start from the back of the pack. Why was Charles Leclerc's lap time deleted? He went wide at turn 1 and broke track limits. So there's track limits at turn 1. It's very, very marginal, but you can just see that little bit of blue to the left-hand side of the Ferrari car. And that means that he has fully crossed the white line. McLaren have already won. Yeah, it's looking very, very tough for Charles Leclerc from 20th place tomorrow to get to a position where he can really needs to finish in front of both of the McLarens, but also needs to finish quite heavily in front of both of the McLarens because they need a 21-point swing, do Ferrari. That is a hefty amount of points when there's only 44 available, even if you get a 1-2, you know what I mean? And I don't think a 1-2 is going to be coming to Ferrari with Charles Leclerc starting in 20th place. Although Carlos Sainz, looking very, very tidy indeed, was fastest there in Q2. Verstappen, though, didn't have a second lap time run. Hulkenberg third, Gasly fourth. The McLaren's not looking anywhere near as swift as I thought they were going to. Alonso managing to join them in the top there. Sort of 4 drivers from the midfield pack, you would say, in that top 10. Could be very interesting to see where those 4 end up being. Hulkenberg versus Gasly versus Alonso versus Bottas in this final qualifying session is one to keep an eye on, as well as the fact that obviously Sainz, Verstappen, Norris are going to be fighting for that pole position and the final win of the season on, at least up for grabs. Oh, Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, Hamilton just saying there's not too much that he could have done about it. That bollard underneath the floor of the car. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton just frustrated there. Couple of things didn't go his way. As Bono said over the radio, it was a little bit tight. Had to rush a little bit on that prep lap. And then, obviously, on top of that, gets a bollard underneath the car. And that just ruins your entire lap, really, doesn't it? So, Lewis Hamilton, been a good pace up until that, though. I think there's still points on the cards for Lewis Hamilton tomorrow, but maybe no more podiums in his Mercedes career to come. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, a couple of minutes now until Q3 gets underway. Oh, no, sorry, we're underway. Green light. I was expecting the cars to get into the pit lane a little bit sooner than they did. But no, we are underway now for Q3. Again, the final qualifying session of the entire season. We've been live for every single one over the course of the year. Every single qualifying and every single sprint race. This is our 30th qualifying session that we are covering on the Not Applicable channel. If you could hit that like button for the final time this season on a qualifying session, that would be absolutely amazing. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button. Trying to hit 110,000. Don't know if that's going to be possible. We're 1,000 adrift going into the final weekend. Just over 1,000 adrift. So, you never know. Got to believe, got to dream. Last qualifying session of the year. Hit that like button as we have 11 minutes to run. Here we go. Carlos Sainz quickest in Q2. Verstappen just behind him. The battle for best of the rest is incredibly tight. 4 cars that you maybe wouldn't expect to be in Q3, or at least a couple of them you wouldn't expect to be in Q3, with Hamilton and Leclerc opening the door for them to join the top. Now we jump into the final opportunity for these cars to improve. Valtteri Bottas in the Stake Sauber car. His final race in Formula One ahead of him. A little wink to the camera there. It's going to be Nico Hülkenberg, the man to get us underway with the flying laps. He's just coming around the final couple of corners through 15 and 16. Pedal to the metal as he gets down towards turn 1. Careful not of those track limits. The first of 2 flying laps, you'd imagine, for the Haas driver. In very careful indeed through turn 1 was Nico Hülkenberg. Let's see what this first sector time is like. A 17.1. Little correction in the middle of the corner, though, as he goes through the kind of new look turn 4, 5 section that we have here. Down towards the chicane comes Nico Hülkenberg. 6 and 7 is probably the most difficult corner of the track. You come in at really high speeds. Got to drop that speed and hit the apex of turn 6. Line yourself up for turn 7. Try and get it as straight as possible, as close to those orange curbs without hitting them. Down towards turn 9. Making sure you carry as much speed as possible through turn 10, 11. Really hard on the brakes once again for turn 12, 13 and 14. The kind of slowest section of the track for Nico Hülkenberg. Round 14 he comes, though. Getting as close to the barriers as possible, using all of that track. Round 15 through 16. And across the line comes Nico Hülkenberg to set the standard at a 1:23.4. A little bit. Of course, he is on used set of tyres. So still a lot more to come there from Nico Hülkenberg. Shy of what he managed to do in Q2. But I get the feeling there's a feeling that there's about to be an upset. What would be an upset here? Would it be? Oh, and Max Verstappen. Oh, that got very shaky. I'm amazed he managed to catch that. I thought we were going to see a Red Bull car barrel into the right-hand side of the track there. Came around the final corner. The rear end of that Red Bull car stepped out massively. And Max Verstappen then darted across towards the right-hand side of the track and just managed to catch that Red Bull. Still went quickest of anybody, by the way. 122.9 for Verstappen. On a fresh set of soft compound tyres, though, compared to the rest who were unused. But very, very surprised Max Verstappen wasn't sent into the wall there. A really, really good catch from the world champion. Here comes Oscar Piastri then, a 122.985. It's just 0.04 of a second adrift. Lando Norris is going to come across. And Lando Norris going up. Also only goes second fastest by 0.004 of a second. Lando Norris, the closest competitor to Verstappen at the moment. And that was on a used set of tyres, by the way. But Max Verstappen also made an error through the final corner. So there's lap time to come from both of those drivers. And it looks like a Verstappen-Norris battle for the pole position. And no, kept it on the track. It was just, came around the final turn. That rear end of the car bobbled around. Kept his car on the racetrack. Kept himself out of the wall on the right-hand side as well. Verstappen, a little bit of a moment there in the Red Bull car, but a great, great catch from him. Comes across the line, still quickest of anybody as well. Piastri lap time deleted. It is indeed, yeah, crossing that white line at turn 1. It's caught out a few drivers now. Charles Leclerc, of course, got caught out in the last session. We saw Sergio Perez lose a lap time to it and then get reinstated in the first qualifying session. But it is all down to these final laps now. Let's have a look at the Oscar Piastri. Did he cross that line? Ooh. Not as clear-cut as the Leclerc one. Similar more so to the Perez one. Might end up being reinstated. I imagine the McLaren team are contesting it at this moment in time. Lando Norris coming into the pit lane. And Lando Norris slotting in. 4 thousandths of a second separate the two. Verstappen and Norris, our championship rivals as it became as the season progressed. Lando Norris having pretty torrid time in Brazil and then similar in Vegas. And that just kind of fell away from it. Qatar ended up being a bit too much as well for Lando Norris. He's had a pretty poor run of races recently. Lando Norris trying to finish this season on a high for the McLaren team. One more win would be absolutely delightful. Get the likes up. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate that. Overturning decisions. Are they okay? I think it's more just like, if you watch the onboard, you can, or watch the, there's a camera that is literally in line, and they'll be able to see it frame by frame. There you go. It is reinstated. So Oscar Piastri at 122.985 reinstated for Oscar. That'll help him out. Just takes the pressure a little bit off when you've got that first lap time in. And Piastri then jumps up to third fastest once again once that is reinstated and done. Hulkenberg podium, currently fifth fastest. Just a couple of those drivers in front of him make a little mistake. Maybe, just maybe. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Nico Hulkenberg, sixth place for Haas in the Constructors. Podium for him to round out his time at Haas and kind of rejoin in the Formula One grid. You got to remember, he was a reserve driver for 3 seasons, was Nico Hulkenberg. Nobody wanted to take the gamble on him. Couldn't find himself a slot on the grid. Now, just looks like an absolute dead set. You know, if you were making a Formula One team, and, you know, of course, your first picks would be your Verstappens, your Leclercs of this world, your Lando Norrises. But beyond that, you know, you're looking at Nico Hulkenberg being one of probably the best picks as a driver right now. Steak Sauber have managed to confirm him in the team for the next couple of years as they transition into Audi. And I think they've got a stunning driver on their hands who has really come back into form this season more than any other. Sergio Perez now coming around on his final flying lap. Let's focus in then. Final couple of minutes here in Abu Dhabi qualifying. The final qualifying session of the season. One more pole position will be handed out. Will it be Sergio Perez here, the Mexican who has had a torrid time of late inside of that Red Bull car? So much talk about his future inside of that Red Bull seat. Can he get one performance to just show that he is worthy of that Red Bull seat for the foreseeable future? It's a couple attempts down on Max Verstappen's lap time at the moment. Subscribe and Hulkenberg will win. It's very convincing, Joss. I like it. I like it. What happened to Leclerc? Lap time deleted, unfortunately. Just the tiniest little bit wide at turn 1. Marginal, but cross the line, you cross the line. And Charles Leclerc lap time deleted. Dropped out in 14th and will actually start from the back of the pack with a 10-place grid penalty. Here comes Sergio Perez to come 4th fastest. Goes the Mexican, a 123.2. And now we have to just see what everybody else gets up to. Oscar Piastri just coming across the start-finish line to start his final flying lap. Alonso and Sainz behind him. Lando Norris coming up too. I think Oscar Piastri just leaving a little bit of room around turn 1. Didn't want to push his luck again after getting that lap time reinstated. Just 5 thousandths of a second adrift of Max Verstappen's time through the first sector is Piastri, but the middle sector where the McLaren car just hasn't quite been able to get it right. DRS wide open for Piastri, lining up where he's going to brake for turn 6, trying to get it lined up through turn 7. You want to get as close to that orange bollard as possible without hitting into it. Piastri through there though, and now down towards turn 9 he comes. Through the middle sector, it's not amazing from Piastri either. He's a 10th or so off Verstappen's current lap time. Verstappen, though, will improve. Here comes Nico Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg with a 122.8. Oh, goodness gracious me. Nico Hulkenberg, the fastest man through the middle sector. Hulkenberg goes purple indeed. Pierre Gasly comes across the line and goes fourth. Carlos Sainz improving through the middle sector. Oscar Piastri comes across the line. It's a stunning final sector from Piastri to put himself on provisional pole. Lando Norris, though, quicker through the middle sector than his teammate. Carlos Sainz, the same. So these two looking very much like they are going to jump to the top of the timing sheets when they come across the line. George Russell miles off of it inside of the Mercedes car at this moment through the middle sector. Here comes Carlos Sainz then, round the final corner for Ferrari, just shy 0.02 of a second adrift of Piastri's time. He slots in second. Here comes Lando Norris to go quickest by a couple of tenths. Lando Norris up into first spot. Piastri just behind him then. It's a current 1-2 for McLaren. George Russell isn't really improving. I think he's going to jump up a couple of places. Here comes Russell to 7th fastest. It's not amazing from George Russell, and Max Verstappen has not improved through the first or second sector and doesn't improve and stays 5th fastest. So Verstappen ends up adrift. And actually behind Nico Hulkenberg, it is a 1-2 for the McLaren cars. They managed to get it together just when it matters in the final qualifying session. It is Lando Norris to start on pole position. Oscar Piastri to start beside him in second. Carlos Sainz will start third for Ferrari. And there he is, Nico Hulkenberg on the second row. Hulkenberg will start fourth. Verstappen fifth. Pierre Gasly is in sixth place. George Russell 7th, Fernando Alonso in 8th, Valtteri Bottas only managed 9th place, and Sergio Perez, the slowest of the lot in that final qualifying session. Of course, beyond that, we did lose Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson. We had Lance Stroll, 13th fastest. Charles Leclerc was 14th. That means he's going to drop to the back of the pack. Kevin Magnussen was 15th. Alex Albon, 16th, means he will take a 5-place grid penalty and he'll start 18th ahead of Franco Colapinto, his teammate, because Zhou Guanyu and Lewis Hamilton will jump up a position. They'll be 16th and 17th apiece. And Jack Doohan will start in front of the two Williams cars and Charles Leclerc, even though he was slowest on the day. What a qualifying it ended up being. And the McLaren boys turn up when we need it. Absolutely stunning from both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri will be looking at Lando Norris at the start, though. You're quite right, Lily. Going down in towards turn one. A little bit very tasty indeed. Of course, no papaya rules in place anymore. These papaya rules have been rescinded as they were post Monza. They are now back to being able to fight for one another. That Constructors' Championship on the line, though. Will Oscar Piastri be told to just hold position to make sure that they win that Constructors' Championship? We'll have to wait and see. Carlos Sainz behind on the second row of the grid with Nico Hulkenberg. Verstappen and Gasly then behind on the third row of the grid. Russell and Alonso will start on the fourth row of the grid. Bottas and Perez inside of the points scoring places. As I said at the beginning of the scene, thank you guys so much for watching. Really do appreciate all of the support over the entire season for the channel. It's been absolutely wonderful. All of those qualifying sessions, 30 different qualifying sessions that we have now covered, including those sprint races. Thank you so much. And one more to go. One more to go tomorrow. A final sprint, a final race. I was thinking final race of the season. Thank you guys so much. If you could leave a like as you're leaving, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you tomorrow for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And maybe, just maybe, Lando Norris will make it one more win for McLaren. And a first Constructors' Championship since, 1998? Or will it be that Nico Hulkenberg picks up his first podium in Formula One? You've got to be here to witness it. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you later. I clicked the wrong button.